Are private schools a bit like shopping centres? Far too many with far too few occupants. But private education seems to be holding up better than shopping centres. For Curro, an 18% spike in half-year revenue, and that bodes well for that particular company. Vestact also had some fairly decent results coming up, but that was interesting in that it was its tertiary business, the Rosebank colleges of the world, that really were the stellar outperformers. But there are an increasing number of small and independent competitors coming into this space, and with household incomes being squeezed, and many of the private schooling companies reporting that the exodus of more and more people involved in the exodus from schools are highlighting emigration as a primary reason. I think 1 in 4 kids who left an Vestact school cited emigration as the primary cause. That's worrying, Nkareng.
I think it's very worrying. But I think that's the exciting thing about education in South Africa, simply because it's potentially quite low-hanging fruit for anybody who's going to deliver it privately. So yes, varsities you would expect that they've done better in a fees must fall environment, and more than that, the limited intake of qualifying students that would have made it through the traditional channels, but they can only accept so many. So that's done really, really well. The immigration problem, it's extremely concerning because it paints a bigger picture of just the economy, and I don't think my kids have a bright future in this country, etc. So that is very depressing. But at the same time, what excites me about the space and the sector is what was exciting for banks, I don't know, 5 years ago, fintech. I think edutech is something I would like to see these names, Curro, Vestact.
You talk to players, especially the smaller players in the sector, and they talk about South Africa leapfrogging in terms of the African continent potentially leapfrogging courtesy of using smart technology, where Johnny at the back struggling with 1 minus 1 can be helped while the kids in the front are doing calculus. It's possible then to stream kids differently, Paul Theron. There is a model there that can be that tech can help.
Yeah, we're invested for clients in Vestact, and as you say, they've sort of been treading water, but the results, I think, were encouraging. I think there's great opportunity because it's only a small percentage of people who are in the private sector at the moment. The difficulty for me about the industry is that it's quite capital intensive. Yeah. You know, the new facilities do cost a lot. So edutech is also a way of reducing the capital intensity of the business. So this is all good, very good.
Banks, you are familiar with the sector. I was going to say you're a fan of the sector. You're familiar with the sector, which is reflective of what's happening in the real economy in South Africa, barely scraping through with gains. We've seen ABSA come out with results. We've seen Nedbank's results, and Nedbank has been a strong performer. EcoBank came through for them in this last set of results. Standard Bank's results were hardly glorious. But is that environment, or is that symptomatic of something wrong with the banks?
I definitely think it's environment for the banks. I think following December and the elective conference, everybody was really celebrating. They had a good Christmas, and then moving into January, you know, you saw very strong performances, and that was on the back of an expectation that there will be tailwind on the back of it, because management teams expected to open up the taps and extend loans, etc.
They open up taps like Cape Townians open taps. Not at all.
Not at all.
So the stuff could run out. It's the same sort of thing.
It's the same kind of thinking. And then there's obviously been uncertainty in land reform or land redistribution. And
although none of the CEOs I've spoken to have admitted that they're in any way changing their lending policies into the agricultural sector. They're not, I mean, they haven't been particularly huge in the agricultural sector, but they're not cutting back at all, which is an interesting
So I heard something this morning that the management teams are talking about how they should lend into that agricultural sector in the face of what's happening politically.
Well, so they'd be stupid not
to try and protect their books, right?
Yeah, completely.
So I think that's been the problem. Uncertainty, and the management teams, and just SA Inc. In general, just waiting on the sidelines, waiting to see how this all plays out. So something like your interest income in a standard bank showing growth of 1% is very indicative of a management team that's concerned, yeah.
I wanted to talk to Paul Theron about something he knows nothing about. Let's talk fashion, Paul Theron.
My favourite subject.
Your favourite subject. I mean, you talk about things you know nothing about all the time. But Woolies, I mean, they perpetually get the mix of their clothing stuff wrong. I know nothing about clothing. I know nothing particularly about women's clothing. But even I have done a double take in recent years, going past Woolies stalls and seeing the catastrophes on the racks. Nkareng, we're going to get her expert opinion in a second,
there are
but she's nodding her head.
buyers inside these companies that try and make these calls. But I think the bigger problem for Woolworths locally, as far as clothes is concerned, is that it's become very competitive. So their target market, which is sort of women between 35 and 50, plethora of choices, you know, Zara and H&M coming into the market, and then some of their competitors elsewhere in the market like Foschini and Truworths also getting their act together. They decided to put a big emphasis on sort of a cheaper range, I think called Element or something. I hope I got that right, or something with an E. Essentials or something. But anyway, they decided that didn't do well.
I think it's Truworths.
It was 15% down, and that was bad, and now they're going to try again. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I don't know how you judge or how you get what's right. But as far as Ian Moyer is concerned, who is still in place at Woolworths, they're going to kind of go back to basics again, which means to zero in on well-made items that are, you know, look good and last long. I don't know. For me, the price points are tricky. Food has done well in Woolies, but the external environment remains negative. I mean, if the economy is expanding, everybody in that space can do well. For the moment, they're not.
And I mean, the likes of the Zaras and the H&Ms have come in on a small scale, but have really shaken up the market. You go into an H&M, you get a T-shirt for $75 for a kid, and it's a cool T-shirt. It's gone by the end of summer, but the kid's twice the size it was at the beginning of summer, so it doesn't really matter. No, it doesn't. Fashion, fashion, fashion. Cheap, cheap, cheap. That works.
And that's what Woolies tried to do. But I remember a time when my mom used to go to Woolworths to buy all my vests and, you know,
she still buy your vests.
Very low-end fashion things. And I think that's what they mean by trying to go back to basics. And they shouldn't try to compete in spaces that they're not known for.
But Pep has done this for 50 years. Pep went in and said, basic dignity for people who don't have very much money. T-shirt, pair of shorts, pair of underpants for a little boy. Boom, there you go. This summer's clothes sorted.
Yep.
Good price point. Don't mess around with it.
I do want the Woolies and those guys to explain to me how they try and compete in e-commerce platforms.
Yeah, but nobody
I know
nobody
they're
does
only
e-commerce.
starting now, but really,
Look, they are trying to re-enter the online market with regard to food. I think Australia is interesting because remember, David Jones is a very big issue for them, and that department store lives or falls by the high-end brand stuff like, you know, handbags and other things that they sell in those very glamorous department stores.
The global big brands, the Hermes and those.
Yes, Gucci and what have you. So they say that's going to be fine and not too susceptible to the online challenge. So, I mean, they're steering through the icebergs here. But at 50 rands a share, Woolies is basically halved since its highs in 2014, 2015. So I don't know. If you own them already as we do, my sense is hang on and see what happens because it won't take a lot of following wind to get them moving higher.
I'm not going to ask you for specifics, but does the market, as we are 2/3 of the way through the year practically, does the market end at higher levels than now or lower levels than now? Just the all-share index. Paul Theron, I'll go to you first, given Nkareng, who's going,
I think it depends how the election goes, and I'm expecting the election to be a bit of a drag 'em out and beat 'em up kind of messy affair.
It's
So
it's
I
only
got
just
to
begun,
say at best, I think we crawl through to the end of the year from here, locally.
Crawl through locally. What about internationally then? You're still anticipating lots of gaps.
Internationally, it's going to continue to the upside, although there are, of course, political issues in the US related to that midterm election and Trump's potential impeachment and all that to get around.
And Britain's little issue of Brexit.
That stuff, yes, but I'm
European
thinking
Union
that we
potentially
still do
dismantling.
fine on a global basis. So
Global
maybe
fine, South Africa at this level or thereabouts, stuttering through to the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I know these kinds of forecasts are dangerous. And
Of course they are, that's why I'm asking.
You know, let's throw that out there.
Okay, stuttering toward the end. Okay?
so
More courageous.
I think half of that, I'm kind of in agreement with half of what Paul said. So global markets, yes, we come out positively by the end of the year. But I also think in that event, South Africa will be lifted along with rising boats.
What, another 10% before year end?
Maybe. And so if globally things turn out okay, I mean politically with in the US, for instance, and Brexit kind of stays what it's been doing, it stays the course, then we probably come out okay if Turkey settles down and emerging markets overall settle down.
Lots of ifs. Lots of ifs. And when there are so many ifs, lots of people see their butts. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Paul, Theron and Nkareng Mpobane joining us this evening here on Taking Stock. Send us your feedback via Twitter. The handle for that at ENCA, or directly to me at Bruce Business using the hashtag ENCA Taking Stock. Till next time. Bye-bye.